So good morning, guys, and welcome to this week's edition of the podcast. I'm going to introduce you to a friend of ours now, Paul, isn't she really? Certainly a friend of Sandstone's. But before we do that, let's just tell you a bit of a story. And this story takes place, I'm reliably informed by today's guest, in 2016. And picture, if you will, I'm in that most glamorous of ski resorts, the Hill End Dry Ski Centre in Edinburgh. Anybody that's ever been there will know that there is nothing glamorous about it. And in fact, I'm still at the bottom of the slopes and probably in my corporate team's kit from when Paul and I have done sort of city ski and various other things. And a young lady comes up to me and she tells me that she's going to ski for a country one day and she wants to chase that dream of racing all over Europe. And she's kind of really up for it. And she's there teaching youngsters to ski or to ski rather at the time. And that person is Claire Winthrop, who is sitting with us today. And we are now 5 years on. And she's on Team GB Skier Cross team. She's represented her country. And in fact, Paul, we've been out to watch her a couple of times as well. So Claire, really nice to have you here today with us.
Nice to be here.
And we've been on, we've all been on quite a long journey together. We've worked with Claire in terms of, obviously we can teach her absolutely nothing about skiing, but we've worked with her in terms of chasing her goals, in terms of sort of presentation training, how to speak in public, putting pictures together, and kind of all the skills that don't go with skiing. But for me, despite all the hard times we've had over a period of time, Claire always inspires me and motivates me, Paul, about you, because she just keeps getting up. And you've had a few setbacks over the years, which we can talk about, but you just keep getting up. And COVID is kind of no exception to that, really. And I'll never forget, Paul, watching you go over that jump in Valten for the first time when we came to watch you.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm a roughy tufty sort of chap. I think I like to have challenges. I love skiing. I love being in the mountains. I come out and I go like, oh yeah, we'll go and see Claire. She's a young girl doing a bit of skiing. Yeah, of course I can. Oh my goodness, just standing by the side of it. And then Claire said, oh Paul, do you want to have a go? I'm sure we can get you to have a go over the course. Not on your life am I going anywhere near those sorts of things.
But Claire, I think you should tell us, because we're talking about skiing, but actually, for me, the most exciting bit about tell everybody where you live. I mean, this could sound really bad. If your parents are listening, they're going to think like you don't love them or something. But why don't you talk to everybody through what your kind of season looks like?
So, for those of you who don't already know us, me and my little sister Zoe actually live in a van all winter. So our dad converted us a van and he said, off you go, see you in April. So yeah, me and Zoe live in our van, which the heating sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. Most of the time doesn't work.
It's quite funny actually, Paul, isn't it? Because we often get odd phone calls from weird places all around the world, not because they're afraid of the 40-foot jump they're trying to do, but actually because the heater's broken in the Alps at minus 10 degrees.
Probably a bigger challenge than the rest of what we do, to be honest.
So it's funny, isn't it? We as you well know, the whole podcast is called Because I Can, and loads of kids go, I'm going to represent my country, whatever that might be, whatever sport that might be, and some people would argue that actually, from a little town in Scotland to go where we don't really have kind of ski racing as a culture. I know we have local races and stuff, but it's not, we're not Switzerland or France. You chase that dream. Why? And you've never lifted, you've never taken your foot off that gas, which I just find amazing. So what keeps you going? Why do you keep getting up and keep going back?
I think, to be honest, it's just the bigger dream. Like, since I've been a kid, I've dreamed of going to the Olympics, and like, obviously when you're a kid, you think about all sorts of random stuff. But in the back of my mind, it's always been like, oh, I'd love to be an Olympian. And then through my childhood, I've just been trying to find a sport that I'm good enough at that it might be somewhat realistic. Then I started skiing, and obviously that was really fun. And then started racing. It turned out I wasn't bad at it. Then decided that, yeah, why not? Let's make a go of this. And I think that's the thing that keeps me going, is there's something I want to achieve, and I won't stop until I have to, or I get there.
But how have you got about making that happen, right? Because it's awesome, and we've literally watched your journey kind of every step along the way, and actually, of all the people I know, you inspire me really regularly actually to sort of jog on a little bit. But how have you gone about doing it? How come you're doing it and you're making it work, and perhaps other people haven't? So if you, as an example, Claire, I guess you got dropped from the team one year, but you kept going. It didn't stop you. You have Zoe's obviously been injured, so you've been out in the Alps all on your own, on that van on your own, and it doesn't stop you. And I guess it's really funny because you keep saying when you were a kid. I mean, she is now the grand old age of 23. And yet your attitude and focus on that is amazing. So how do you keep getting up in the morning? What do you do to make it happen? Because there's no money, is there? No one's paying you a wage. No one is paying me.
I don't know. I think part of it is just I'm quite a stubborn person. Like, I've set my mind to this, and I'm gonna do it, and nobody's gonna get in the way of that, or nothing's gonna get in the way of that. The thing with the team where I wasn't selected, and in my opinion felt I probably should have been, what's kind of pushed me through that is that I just want to prove a point. Actually, I want to prove to myself and to the rest of the people involved that actually I can do this, and I'm gonna show you that 5 years down the line that it didn't really matter that you didn't select me.
I think we've seen it up close, Paul. I'll never ever forget City Ski. So we go to this big corporate ski event. We've done it a few times now, and we get accused of taking ringers every year. It just happens to be that we know a few fairly handy skiers. Anyway, this one year I phoned Claire up and I said, look, Claire, I think we're in Verbier, Claire, weren't we? And I said, look, the event's in Verbier, and it would be really good if you could come and race for us. It'd be cool to have you on the team. And unbeknownst to me, on the Thursday before it, you'd had a pretty massive off, hurt your ankle, etc. And she came across, and the next morning she's literally limping around the hotel. Now, I appreciate that, the City Ski Championships is on a par with the Olympics, not. And I kind of took one look at Claire and said, Claire, you literally, you can't be racing today, like no chance, And actually, it's a team sponsor for you as well. I'm not entirely sure if I should be encouraging you to do yet more damage. But actually, Claire looked at me with this absolutely steely look in the eye that I've only seen with people in Afghanistan prior to that, really. And she said, Tim, I told you I was going to race. I am going to race. As her sister was strapping a ski boot on because she couldn't physically do it herself. And she raced that day. And unless I'm hugely mistaken, you were, 0.2 of a second behind Shemi Alcott or something that day?
It was pretty close, I'm not going to lie. That was part of the motivation to get me for racing. I wanted to see how close I could get.
Turns out quite close. How close were you to Shemi, Paul?
During the race or afterwards in the bar? What are we talking? Cool. I mean, one of the things I wanted to sort of discuss with you, Claire, is that loads and loads of people out there, when they look at successful people, often successful people these days have got a lovely Instagram account, and they've got a Facebook, they've got a story, they've got an autobiography, and it almost seems that they've started here and they've easily made everything work, and then they've ended up where they actually are. But then when you start to drill into the detail and talk to people and get them to start opening up, and when I get to talk to you about this, and this is what's really inspirational, is that it hasn't been a wonderful trip from A to B, where you start off at 12 being introduced to skiing, and then you end up with a gold medal at B when you're 25. There's all these starts and stops and wiggles and cul-de-sacs and blockages and things that get in the way and knockdowns. And I suppose maybe that's the filter. Maybe that's those people who aren't as resilient drop by the wayside, and those people who are resilient, or in your mind, in your words, as stubborn as you, just keep going. Is that a fair point, that no one ever seems to get to where they want to go without lots and lots of detours along the way?
I think the first thing is that nobody puts the rubbish on social media, do they?
Yeah.
Like, most people's social media accounts are filled with all the happy, funny pictures of life, but nobody actually puts on social media when things aren't going so good. But I think when it comes to people who want it or could have been successful and don't make it, I think those people just don't find motivation from when it is hard. Like, I know for me, like when I get like to a hard point, I'm like, this is gonna feel so good when it's not as hard. And that's been particularly relevant this year with COVID. I can't wait for next season already, when it's going to be so easy to just move around without having to think about which countries I can and can't go in from where and what I need to go in and out.
That is that's an awesome, optimistic, inspirational way to look at things. It's like, this is hard, but it's going to be awesome next year when it's less hard. Wow, that's a cool way of looking at it. I wish I always looked at it that way.
Yeah, so do I. Yeah. Okay, well, I think the other thing that impresses me with you, because obviously you know, actually, you've been and spoken to lawyers. You know, you've come and worked with Paul and I talking about resilience, and you stood in front of 25, you know, sort of hardened lawyers talking about resilience, and that day will live with me forever. Really, Paul, about you, but you know, a whole lot of lawyers came in the room actually from Gately Plc, and they were expecting, the day was around resilience, and they were expecting Paul and I to stand up and talk about, you know, Afghanistan and soldiering and whatnot and resilience. And in fact, Claire and her sister stood up, and you told a story of your journey of skiing and how we knocked back so you keep getting up. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house, but even that didn't happen by accident, did it? You put a lot of time and effort in. What are some of the other skills that you worked hard around to be able to go skiing? Because for me, I think that's the bit that nobody sees, isn't it?
I mean, it's no secret that everyone in a sport works hard on their strength and their conditioning and stuff. That's by the by. If you want to be good at sport, you have to be fit. But I think there's been so much to learn. I've done so much learning, and I think that's probably, or maybe what sets me apart from other people who might have wanted to do it. There's, like, I've had to learn how to budget. Or
No, budgeting is absolutely brilliant, because I mean, I'll never forget. Obviously, Phil so well from Chipton and helped you out a little bit, haven't they, with the season last year and this year when you go skiing. What's your, for you to compete at Europa Cup? Perhaps you should actually just share with everybody, what do you live on for an entire season to represent your country and go racing? What's your budget for the season?
So by the time I get to October, I need to have saved about £7,000 so that I can pay all of my fees and my race entries and eat.
So that's £7,000 for the entire season, guys. If you happen to be listening to this now, I happen to know that a few of our audience have a bit of a thing for maybe Folly Douce or catered chalets, and I know, you know, a number of people who definitely will be listening to this spend that in a week, not a 6 month long racing season, which I think like it's a massive credit to you. What else? I mean, I was thinking about as well, things about you put so much time and effort into your presentation training, haven't you, as well? I think that's quite impressive. You realise that you need to take people on your journey with you, and you put time into that.
Yeah, I mean, when I first met him, getting me in front of the camera was a challenge, and I got in front of the camera and stammered my way through whatever, and now he can't keep me out of the camera. Like, Claire, please, just leave.
Yeah, and I think that, but for me, that's what sets you apart. You know, so many times I know Paul gets the same. I'm approached by young athletes and go, "Oh, Tim, we've seen your kit on Claire and Zoe, or we've seen your kit on Chantel, or whatever it might be. Will you sponsor me?" And I say, "Yeah, sure, go back. You know, come back, get in touch, and let us know what you can do for us." And either they don't bother, or you never hear from it, or they just want a check written. And actually, what impresses me is how hard you work on the peripheries of that. And my advice would be to anybody listening, if you're chasing that sport, you know, take Claire's example and work hard at the bits that don't necessarily seem to be important, because they all add up together to make the whole that is you when you go forward as an athlete.
Yeah, it's not the obvious stuff you have to concentrate on. It's all the bits that ultimately will make you a better person, if that's how you want to put it, once you're done with sport. Like, over the last few years, I've realised how important all of the other things I've been doing through skiing will be. So, like, my presentation training and actually just finding some sort of hard work ethic in myself is probably going to help me more than what actually racing I'll ever do.
What have you found the biggest challenge so far? I mean, obviously coronavirus aside, but in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 seasons, what's been the hardest thing for you to overcome, do you reckon?
I think emotionally the hardest thing was not getting selected for GB when the rest of my team and my friends did, And that was particularly hard because I felt no slower than them. I just had a little bit of bad luck with results, and our whole system's based on points, and I just didn't make the points, and that was really hard to swallow. And at that point, I did sit down and I was like, I'd said to myself in the season before that, if I don't make the team, I'm not continuing skiing. And then when I got that email, I was like, no, I'm going out to prove you wrong. And I think it actually probably made me enjoy skiing more, because there was no pressure on this season. I wasn't in the team, so it doesn't matter how well I do, and I've skied better than I ever have. So
I mean, there's two things for me that are quite. One thing I was, and Paul and I have been skiing with you and Zoe a few times now, haven't we? And one of the things that I love when I go skiing with you guys is you actually still just enjoy it. And I can't say how that important that is. You know, any sort of, and I'm not a parent, but Paul is, but for parents out there that are busy chest poking 5-year-olds, telling them they won't get to the Olympics, you know, for me, it's super important that you still enjoy it. And actually to go skiing with you and Zoe is an absolute pleasure, because you still got a massive grin on your face and twinkle in your eye when you go skiing, and that always comes across. But guys, I should probably explain to you at this point, actually, and perhaps it should have done it earlier. Ski cross. What Claire does is ski cross, and there's this weird thing that happens. So if you could see Claire now, she's sitting here, she's been working all day, she's got her glasses on and very prim and proper, and she's super polite to everybody around her. And then what happens is they get to the top of this course, and all I can describe to you is fundamentally a black run that plummets down the side of a mountain, only that's not enough of a challenge. So what they do is they build jumps and rollers into the course, gap jumps. And then what they do is, because to race on your own against a stopwatch is not exciting enough, 4 of them go and do it together. So a bit like a motocross track, only down a black run. The 4 skiers all go together and literally race each other for position. Now, officially, it's a non-contact sport, but we've witnessed otherwise, Paul, haven't we, really?
There's definitely some shoulders and elbows and things.
Because there's this weird transformation that happens. Because I remember my kind of, meek, mild-mannered Claire, and I distinctly saw a Swiss athlete face first into a gate over a jump in Val Thorens, and I'm not sure she wasn't assisted there by you, young lady.
That was her fault. I'll stand by that. You can't go in a space where there's not a space.
Particularly not if you're closing the door on the way in.
Well, that would be illegal.
So what next then, Claire? Obviously, this year's been absolute chaos, hasn't it? And but you've kept at it though. And the amount of phone calls we've had where you've been like, not sure if I can get into this country or out of that country, or get around here or do that, have been unbelievable. But what's it looking like, do you think, for, I guess, 21, 22, isn't it? Have I got that right?
I mean, I'm ever optimistic that COVID will disappear and we'll get back to normal. Then we've only got the issue of Brexit to stumble over, but that's not for this podcast. As long as I can get to Europe and go skiing, the plan is to keep in Europa Cup, just keep improving, really keep the momentum for this season over the summer, get stronger, get heavier, and then
I mean, it's quite funny actually, because you're one of the only girls I know of your age that is desperately trying to put weight on, which is probably a good thing, isn't it? You're trying to get fitter and stronger, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty people listening to this podcast like, oh, horrible that she's trying to put weight on. Like, take some of mine.
You need the strength there. You need the strength and power. Really, that's what that's all about.
Yeah,
luckily, it's an area that Tim and I don't have to concentrate too hard on.
There's no small downhill races, Paul. Yeah, we were out cycle training last night, and you don't see Axel Lund Svindal doing biathlon really. So that's the way it is, isn't it? But what about you? You've obviously been a part of this journey with Claire and with Zoe actually for the last few years and stuff. I know we've sort of never lifted really in terms of looking after. But what's inspired you with what we've seen with these two? When you're managing director of Sandstone, and it's never a conversation, is it, in terms of do we help them again next year?
No, it's the story, it's the backstory, it's the fact that Claire keeps going, adversity hits, it's like, right, let's reassess. It fits with all of our with however we talk about being resilient and keeping going and splitting it up into small chunks. It Claire's story and Claire's attitude just aligns very well with exactly what we've always said in terms of Sandstone. You know, when it's hard, when it's difficult, right, let's do a bit of self-assessment, let's have a little think about it. Right, should we keep going? Yes, we can. Can we get to the top? Can we get to the gold medal? Well, that's too far away. Can we have a little chunk it up and go, well, can I be a little bit faster? Can I get to the next Europa Cup thing? Yes, I can. Right, well, let's go and do that. And it's just lovely to watch that story and then hear the backstory of just, you know, bounce back, keep going, resilience, splitting it up into small chunks, moving forwards. You know, and I'd like to think that, you know, a few of the tips and tricks from my skiing have rubbed off on you, Claire, there.
What was it he said to you? When we were skiing in Val Thorens, I seem to remember us getting a coaching session from Claire and Zoe as we went down the mountain, and I vaguely remember Zoe's advice to you being fairly similar to Ed Drake's.
Really, what? Less shit, more awesome. Seems a bit hard.
I think she fundamentally told you. I think the small young girl basically told you need to grow a set and ski faster. I think was pretty much the advice that you were given.
I doubt that very much. I think it was more, wow, Paul, I'll try and copy you next time. Yeah.
Guys, what I would say to you is if ever you need a bit of motivation, Claire certainly never lets her head go down, right? So she has the odd moment where it's a bit dark and a bit miserable, and she'll pick the phone up and she'll talk to hopefully one of us sometimes, her friends and sister, obviously. But fundamentally, she never lets it get her down. She keeps picking herself up, keeps at it, reevaluates, looks at what's gone wrong. How do I fix it? How do I go better? Endlessly. And in fact, often when I'm having a bit of a moment, quite often use Claire as a bit of a role model and say, actually, you know, what Claire do? She'd pick herself up and she'd sort this out and she'd keep going. And if ever you just want to sort of see an uplifting story, follow them. Go on Instagram. What's your Instagram account there?
At Claire Winthrop.
Yeah, so go at Claire Winthrop and Facebook and the like as well, and just have a follow. And it's really quite inspirational just to watch her going about her business, chasing a dream, and refusing to back off and quit. And it's, you know, it's genuinely quite inspirational, a bit of a ray of sunshine to watch that on a daily basis. So, sorry, Paul.
And it's going to be fun watching next year. Looking forward to seeing where you end up, what happens, and how we end up coming out of COVID and you moving forwards. So, yeah.
And I think we'll probably plan a trip. I know Alan Philsell and I went out this year to support for a weekend, and we did actually watch at least 2 of the races. Although in fact we got told off for cheering too loudly. I think we embarrassed the Team GB, but there we go. That can happen. So I think, you know, we'll certainly, Paul, try and get out again when we watch them this season. Watch them this season, and message us below somehow on social media if you fancy joining us and coming supporting the girls for a weekend rating. So we're going to let you get on, Claire. Guys, thank you very much for listening in. Like I said, follow their journey at Claire Winthrop, and we'll see you all again soon.